Thanks for joining us on the news at 1. Now, it's lost nearly 85% of its value in the last 2.5 weeks. But today, Steinhoff International's share price was up over 10%, just under 9 rand. The company announced last week that its major shareholder, Christo Wiese, would step down as executive chairman, citing possible perceived conflict of interest. Steinhoff is subject to numerous investigations by a number of agencies here in South Africa, as well as by German authorities. Many investors have decided not to stick around to wait for the outcome of those investigations, with big question marks about whether the company can remain listed in the long run. For more on this, we cross back to Nompumelelo Siziba at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange to look more closely at the matter.
Thanks very much, Nzinga. Well, like you say, Steinhoff is besieged at the moment. Lots of investigations. It's in a lot of trouble, in fact. And one person who has been making noise about Steinhoff and irregularities and improper conduct for a long time is Mr. Zwelakhe Mnguni, who we spoke to on the markets earlier. He's from Benguela Global Fund Managers, and he's been asking lots of hard questions directly to the former chairman, Christo Wiese, and also to the board about certain decisions around their acquisitions, which were very hard and fast. They were paying massive premiums for assets, and he couldn't understand why. So we'll just get into it with him right now. Thanks again, Zwelakhe, for joining us.
Thank you.
What was it about Steinhoff when everybody was raving about it? What was it about it that you were very concerned about that made you uncomfortable to invest your clients' funds?
I think there's two things. So the first thing is the accounting reporting was very unstable, if you could call it that. So wasn't consistent every year. So divisions were being moved around. So you couldn't make sense of what actually had happened year on year in the company. The second issue was the issue of lack of independence in the board. So, I mean, it appeared to us that it was a group of people who knew each other for years, and they basically couldn't hold each other accountable. And those two reasons were mainly the things that made us uncomfortable.
Now, we know that on the eve of Mr. Wiese stepping down as the executive chair last week, you wrote him a letter pleading that he stepped down because he was essentially conflicted. He did do that. He stepped down. But what about the rest of the board? Isn't there a case for them to also step down?
Oh, certainly. I mean, in that very same letter, we actually asked them that the entire board needs to resign, because we feel that you can't do an investigation of what has happened in this whole mess. And the people who presided over that same problem are actually the people who will be receiving the reports from PwC, for example. So what our view is that they need to resign the board in its entirety. And we are taking some further steps to actually engage with the new chairperson, Heather Son.
Okay. And I see that you've laid criminal charges against the former CEO, Marcus Juster. What are those charges, and why just him?
So there is, we laid a criminal charge of fraud on the back of the board acknowledging that there is €6 billion worth of assets, about 97 billion rands worth of assets that are either invalid or cannot be supported somehow. And based on that, we also got what was supposedly an email from Marcus Juster, where he had written to staff to say that he's made big mistakes. So from our perspective, those two were very good points to start off with. And basically, we don't believe that he acted alone. He may have come up with plans, but I think we see it as the CEO, CFO, and the board. So CEO and CFO on fraud, board on negligence. So we are taking some further steps on that.
Very quickly and lastly, can Steinhoff survive? We know that it's got fantastic underlying operations, but can it survive?
Look, it's difficult. I mean, the biggest challenge is that it's got so much debt. And that could actually create, because if you're under pressure to pay off your debt, you're selling the asset, you've got no option to sell the asset at fair value. You have to sell at a discount. And because of that, you could end up with a low value relative to the current price. So our view is that it's probably at best fairly valued at the current level.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Well, Zwelakhe tells me that he was invested a tiny bit last week in Steinhoff, but he has since sold all of his shares in the company because he doesn't have a very good outlook for it. Well, it's back to Nzinga in studio.